From September 30 to October 4, 2019, over 300 delegates converged on the Yaoundé Conference Center for the major national dialogue convened by the head of state, coordinated by the Prime Minister, head of government, Chief Dr. Joseph Diongute. The 5-day conclave gave Cameroonians an opportunity for them to sit like a family to find sustainable solutions to the Anglophone crisis and other issues rocking the country. 10 months after the historic meeting, which ended with the adoption of a special status for the northwest and southwest regions of the country, one of the delegates who took part in the meeting says that the major national dialogue has not been able to meet the peace aspirations of the people of the northwest and southwest regions. He has re-echoed the need for sustainable solutions in a bid to ensure a return to normalcy. Our guest will be telling us why he thinks that the major national dialogue has nothing to show in the direction of peace and what he believes is needed to ensure that the said peace is attained. This is her talk. Our guest tonight is an award-winning human rights lawyer, president of the banned Anglophone Civil Society Consortium, which played a great role in articulating the plight of English-speaking lawyers and teachers in the northwest and southwest regions of the country during the early stages of the crisis. Founder of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, he has worked at the UN mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as the Special Court for Sierra Leone. Barrister Nkongho Felix Agbor Balla, welcome to Her Talk.
Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you. Now, 10 months after the holding of the major national dialogue which you took part, in your latest outing, you said that the major national dialogue, and I quote, it says that there's nothing concrete to show in the direction of peace. Why do you have such a view when governments seem to have made a couple of moves? We have seen the bill on bilingualism. We have the code of decentralization, and which contains the special status for the northwest and southwest regions. And we have seen how government has been mobilizing resources for the reconstruction and development of the regions. Why do you have a contrary view?
You see, peace would not be done by an isolated event. So it will be a combination of factors that would have to be put in place by government and those who also have taken up arms against the state to find a solution. The major national dialogue is a step in the right direction, or let me say was a step in the right direction. And I did not expect that it would solve all our problems, because you cannot have a conflict for close to 4 years and have a 4-day session to think that all the solutions will be found. But I personally think that a lot has not been done, you know, towards the realization of the hopes and aspirations of the people of Southwest and Northwest, or you call them the people of the Southern Cameroons. I mean, the major national dialogue was called principally because of the Anglophone crisis. And what came out from it, one would say, was the special status. That was the biggest thing that came out of it. If you followed social media, people were either for or against. But it was the new king in town that everybody was expecting to see the kind of cloth that, the king would come with. But unfortunately, when you look at it, you realize that the king was kind of naked with it. So that is why I believe that a lot has not been done concretely, because I think that it would have ushered in some kind of hope for the people who are suffering. It would have midwifed the beginning of a long process of negotiation for us to come out of this quagmire.
Yeah. Now, you also advocated that national and international initiatives are supposed to be relaunched in a bid to find the much and needed peace. Which of these initiatives do you think could bring the much needed end to the crisis?
You see, one size would not fit all. I believe that it will be a combination of the national, regional, and international. Let me give you an example. As we speak, there was an international process that was called the Swiss Talk.
Yeah,
that started. We also had a national process You know, the one that, I'm not talking about the Grand National Dialogue, I'm talking about the one that Seseko and Ayuk Tabe, they met for a preliminary discussions.
Exactly, we shall be coming to that later.
And the other ones now that I saw, that is international, national, and regional. Now, there was supposed to be a meeting in, I think, Nairobi,
Kenya,
that did not go through because of COVID. So how do we merge all these groupings? Because if you look at what is happening, one party supports one and doesn't support the other. So how do we merge all of them so that rather than call it the Swiss initiative, it could be an international initiative, meaning that a combination of those who advocate for these national discussions with also those who advocate for international discussions. But regional players, the AU has to come into play. Nigeria, South Africa, for example. So if you would have, you know, let's say you have Nigeria, South Africa, or the EU is represented, you have those who in government think that this national discussion should go on, and those who believe in the Swiss process. So you have countries like, for example, Canada is a major donor. So Canada joins the Swiss process, the Americans, the Germans, the South Africans, the Nigerians, or the AU, and the National Party. So now it's no longer a national or a Swiss process, because apparently there are people in government who don't want to see the Swiss process work, who don't believe in it. There are also people who don't believe in the national process. In the separatist movement, there are those who don't believe in the national process and those who don't believe in the Swiss process. How do we blend all of them together for us to have one process that would be legitimized by the members, and if something good comes out of it, the international community will be like the guarantor?
But now, for such a process to take place, both parties must come to a consensus. How do they arrive at this consensus when the government says Cameroon must stay one and indivisible through decentralization, and the separatists say restoration of independence or nothing?
Well, I think both parties will have to make concessions. You don't talk to your friends, you don't dialogue, you dialogue more often than not to your enemies, people you don't agree. So each and every one would have to shift his or her position to come to the center, meaning that those who think that the panacea is the decentralization, they will realize that no, they have to go beyond this kind of cosmetic decentralization that we have. I'll go back to the special status just to look at this current decentralization. Not so, if they're based on it and these special status that they have, it's a farce. Okay, because if you look at what happened at the major national dialogue, the special status was given, not so, and the participants at the grand dialogue left it to the state to determine the content. They gave the state comment carte blanche to determine the content. But when you look at the content today, I mean, apologies of the special status, I regret it. I'll give you a few examples, okay?
Yeah.
If you look at the special status, what does it clearly say? You know, this is supposed to be a special arrangement for the Southwest and the Northwest because of our specificity, our linguistic and historical, background. A major innovation in the special status from what we have today, if you look at the law on decentralization of 24th December 2019, it talks about the fact that the regional houses will be made up of 90 members, okay? In the Southwest and the Northwest region, the 90 members would include 20 who are traditional rulers. In the Francophone areas, they would have 90 members, and the regional house would determine the number of traditional chiefs. So that is what people are talking as a difference. Okay. Secondly, the law makes to the effect that when the houses are sitting in the Southwest and Northwest, we would have a divisional house, representing the divisions, the 70, and then the 20 of our traditional area will sit separately, giving the impression that we are having a house of chiefs, like we used to have during the days of federation. But it's nothing, okay? And for the Francophones, the 90 would sit. Those are the things that they are claiming they've given. And then also this ombudsman, who's appointed by the president to solve problems. But he's appointed by the head of state and can be dismissed by the head of state. So you tell me, when you look at that, look at aspects of autonomy. the governors are still appointed, the SDOs and DOs, they still have power. So what we thought was that we would have some measure of autonomy where we could determine our educational system, our judicial system, our police, and the rest, to avoid this marginalization and assimilation that we've been saying for years, 56, 57 years. They've been perpetuating over us. So at the end of the day, nothing really has been brought in by the special status. So if we need to come out of this logjam, government has to go beyond the special status. The separatists also have to agree that they would have to tone down their rhetoric for independence and chief position. Yeah. And that is why some of us believe that the melting pot would be a federation, where so you move from the decentralized unitary state kind of mentality, the separatists move from their independence or nothing, and then come to the middle, and we have a federation. It becomes a win-win situation for everybody, and I think the country would be the victor. So nobody would say, I am a loser and you're a victor. The entire country would have won. So to me, that is the way forward. But these have to this for us to get there, we need a series of confidence building measures. For example, that kind of meeting that held with Seseko, the fact that they attended the meeting is something. And also, on the ground, government has to be winning the minds and hearts of the people of Southern Cameroon. You understand? So the kind of reprisals, the burning of villages, the unlawful arrest and detention, they would have to reduce it. The arrogance in which they drive around the town, the way they oppress and suppress the people, they would have to tone it down, because you only make the people feel more annoyed and say nothing good can come from you if you keep on behaving the way you're behaving, as if we are not in a conflict situation.
All right. Talking about the meeting between the jailed separatist leaders and the government said that the meeting, as represented on social media, is not consistent with the reality. What do you make of it? Is the government trying to tell us that there was no meeting, or there was a meeting following your findings and government is not coming clean on it?
No, I don't think government said there was no meeting. I read the communique from Rene Emmanuel Sadi. He said that what is on social media is not a reflection of that the government did not have a meeting with separatists awaiting trial. But when I looked at the list of those who attended the meeting, I think only one person there was awaiting trial. So there were separatists who had been convicted. So probably he was saying something else, okay? And I spoke to a couple of people who attended the meeting. I don't think Seseko would tell me that there was a meeting when there was no meeting. I spoke to Seseko, I spoke to other members who were in the meeting. Seseko sent me the points that he raised with the person who was representing government. So there was a meeting. Sadi's reaction, it's just a reaction, and I knew before the communique came out that the hawks in the regime were trying to water down the what took place, because to them it's supposed to be either them or the highway, But he said something also, that they are still open, to all avenues that would find a solution to the crisis. So to me, it's a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, it shows the power play in government. As we get towards a period where everybody is trying to position himself or herself to be the next president of this country, we will not be surprised to have these kind of communiques and counter communiques. But as a fact, the meeting took place. And to those of us who like peace, who want to get back to normalcy in this country, we think that is a step in the right direction. Nothing has been achieved. It was just a discussion, and they were planning to have another discussion. But probably with this communique, I think that they might not. But I read also something that Lansana filed, the UN.
Luseni filed.
Yeah, he too made a statement that the president supports the process, which is a good thing. So we are optimistic that after the carnage that has been taking place, the sufferings of the people, we should be thinking of coming out of this logjam and find a long-lasting solution.
Yeah, you say you spoke with Seseko. What was his state of mind going into the meeting?
Well, I spoke to him after. He's somebody who is very strong. He's somebody who is very resilient. He's somebody who is level-headed. He's somebody who is very positive-minded. So he's willing to see how something good can come out of it. He still maintains his stand for a separate state, to which I respect his position. And just like also speaking to the other leaders, it's time, whether it's Sako, whether it's Ayaba, or whether it's Akwanga, for us to move forward, these leaders would have to try to have a common position. They would have to be able to talk to each other, not talking across each other, not talking to each other via the social media, so that at least we can have a solution. Because don't forget, at the end of the day, they are the people the people are the ones suffering. The politicization of the struggle is not helping anybody. We need to try to put concrete measures, and you're not going in for peace because you are weak. You're going in because you think that your people need peace. You love your people and you want to put an end to this suffering.
Yeah, Barrister, you have worked in the U.S. mission in Congo, and also the special court in Sierra Leone. In a case where we see where the separatists, most of them do not agree with the supposed meeting that took place, how does that play out to ensure that peace comes back to the Northwest and Southwest regions? From what you have seen in other areas where you also have people with such views.
I worked on the UN peacekeeping mission in Afghanistan, which was a very dangerous mission. I was there. I was there twice. I came in as a human rights officer, left for Congo, then came in back as a legal affairs officer. There was a lot of confidence building. I would tell you that from the legal officer's perspective, there were times when we would behind the scene negotiations draft that some Taliban members could use UN flights to go and attend meetings. Okay, so you have to do a lot of work behind the scene, and I am hoping that some of the stakeholders, some Anglophones who are opinion leaders, the clergy and civil society and politicians, they have to come together as a team and start talking to these leaders, to start seeing how they can broker some form of peace and unity amongst them, because that is the first thing. You understand? All of us who have a say in this thing, if we don't try to talk to them and see how we can have a common position, it would be difficult, because now we have personality conflict. Okay, it's not about position in hearing. It's, I don't like X has done this. So if we, first of all, and I'm urging them, I'm using this medium to call on all of them, please stop this attack on social media. As a leader, you have to lead, but you have to respect others also. Before you join this struggle, there were other people who were involved in this struggle. If you did not have the Munzus, the Ngwanes, the Elats, and the Anyangwes, you will not have had the Agbobalas of the 2017. And if you do not have the Agbobalas, you will not have the Seseko, you will not have the Sako.
Yes, Sako.
Okay, so it's a cycle. We have to understand. So when somebody gets there and thinks that he's infallible, he's like somebody who is the Messiah, I say no. You have to be humble enough to talk to the elders. Try to see how we can have a common team, because also it would make it easier for government, because most at times you hear people in government tell you that, or in the diplomatic mission,
they'll ask you that, with who are we going to talk with?
They start talking to one party, another party comes out criticizing it. I think that we are very mature people, we are very reasonable and responsible people. The leaders, I am pleading with the leaders, to try as much as possible. I, as an individual, have started talking to some of the leaders to see how they can tone down their rhetoric, their hatred for each other, and look at the interests of the people of the Southwest and the Northwest. If that is done, then it might be easier. But also, government, on its own part also, has to do a lot, you understand, to try to build confidence amongst the people. And that's why I said winning the minds and hearts of the people of the Southwest and the Northwest. If government does that, and also we put our house in order, then we can now sit on a table, because our agreements or disagreements would only be discussed on a table. And like all conflicts, they will end on the table. So the earlier we go to the table, so that we reduce the loss of life and property, which is a lot, the better for the country.
The national coordinator for the reconstruction and development of the Northwest and Southwest regions completed a 2 weeks awareness and sensitization tour, and early this week, we have information that the Prime Minister has begun mobilizing the various actors to ensure that the presidential plan is being set in motion. But this is a plan, Barrister, that has raised some mixed feelings, especially within the Northwest and Southwest regions. Are those who are against the plan in the present context, do they have justification?
I think one problem is probably the name. The presidential plan for reconstruction and development. Everything has been politicized, and it's now we against them or they against us. So people look at things from different perspectives. Probably if you just said a recovery plan, nobody would be questioning it. You understand? So it's also a problem, and let's not pretend. The name makes it more difficult for people to accept it. But from my own personal perspective, I will look at it as a point of view of recovery. You understand? And a lot of people have said that how can there be recovery when the conflict is going on? I said no. Yeah. We've seen instances where the UN gets there to do recovery while the conflict is going on. You don't know when the conflict will come to an end. For the conflict to come to an end, it doesn't depend on one individual. Okay, it depends on many stakeholders. And as we speak, the stakeholders are not really prepared to have a concrete solution. So whilst they are preparing to get to a solution, what is happening to the people? The people are suffering. The people want to get back to normalcy. So how do we have a stopgap measure during this phase where the conflict is still going on for the people to get some form of normalcy? I can give you a very practical example. Take Boya. Prior to the crisis, let's assume that Boya had 200 persons, not so 200,000. And during the height of the crisis, people like 30,000 left. Now Boya has like 250 because the Kunas and the Munyenges, they have come to Boya. Not so there's a need to build hospitals, for example. There's a need to build schools, not so other facilities. What do we do during this period? So we look at the places which are kind of safe and start doing something, because if the conflict finishes today, you cannot do reconstruction within the next 1 year. It will be a long phase, not so. So start where it's feasible and look at the people. The government owes a duty to protect people's lives and their property. So government has to do what it's supposed to do. But also to my brothers and sisters in the separatist movement or those who are saying no, think about the people. When you meet somebody, I went to refugee camp in Nigeria and asked some people, they have problems. Why are they not coming back? A couple of years ago, and they said they cannot come back because they don't have anywhere to stay. Okay, we complain when government burned these villages, not so. We issued statements criticizing government. Government wants to rebuild the same villages, and we say no. You understand? So what do we really want? Let's be honest also, because most of the people who are saying no are not the people who are the victims. Okay, talk to somebody. I talk to a myriad of people daily. People call, send messages. If I show you my personal messages on WhatsApp or Twitter or Facebook, people are crying. People are suffering. Our people have never been beggars, but the crisis has made our people beggars. So how do we find a solution to get back to normalcy? And most people don't understand that UNDP is going to be the implementing partner, and UNDP is not politicizing the recovery. So we need to give them an opportunity in some of the places which are safe. If schools have been burned in a place where 2 years ago it wasn't safe and today is safe, don't we need to rebuild those schools to recover what it has so that kids should be able to go back to school? These are questions that we have to ask to prick the consciences of those who are saying against recovery. If this conflict drags for the next 5 years, what's going to happen? No, let's be honest. These are critical questions we have to ask ourselves also, that we need to find a way out. And whilst trying to find a long-lasting solution, there are basic things that have to be done.
All right, Barrister, you just mentioned that the people are suffering, and the suffering is getting worse by the day. You had the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa that has been engaged in the field collecting information on some of these rights violations. How bad is the situation?
Extremely bad. Extremely bad. It's a kind of a humanitarian catastrophe. Gross and systematic human rights violations, which are widespread, are taking place. It's led to a dire economic situation. Some families are breaking up or breaking down. The kids are getting pregnant. Young girls are getting pregnant. Some of them are becoming armed robbers. Drug trafficking or drug consumption It's becoming the order of the day. You know, if we are not careful, we would have a kind of a lost generation. We'll have a generation that they will cause mayhem. That even if the crisis comes to an end, if you don't rehabilitate some of these children, armed robbery, I remember my days when I was in school in Lagos, how armed robbery was running riot. I mean, for example, a place like Boya, where I grew up, you could sleep without closing your doors, but now it's not like that. So as Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, we try as much as possible within our limited means to support some of the victims of the crisis by providing food and non-food items. Humanitarian support will be to most of the towns and the villages in the southwest and the northwest. We have equally created an empowerment center where we are currently training IDP women, girls in particular, to learn a trade, to sew, because they said teach somebody how to
fish rather than
and
give
not to give
fish.
somebody a fish. So, and when you go to the field, we talk to most of them, they will tell you, Barrister, thank you for the rice, but we want to do something. Help us to find a solution. So we are documenting the violations also which are taking place. We're also doing advocacy, you know, but nobody can do it alone. So it's a collective effort. The government, the local civil society organizations, and the international community also, we need to work together to help our people.
How challenging has the humanitarian effort been? Because recently the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs had to come out and cry foul over the threats, the violence that are being meted on humanitarian workers and organizations. So in your case, how challenging is the situation?
It's very challenging because in some areas you might not, you cannot go there. We've gone to a place where I was accosted by some of the armed separatists, but fortunately somebody identified me and we had a discussion, and they did not disturb our distribution. At times also you have issues with the military. The military might advise you that where you're going is a no-go area. You should not go because of your security. At times also they threaten you, telling you that no, you people cannot be helping, going to give food to people who have taken up arms. Humanitarian support is neutral. Okay, it's not political. You're providing humanitarian support to each and everyone who needs it. I understand when the international humanitarian community, you remember they killed one of their staff, Medecins Sans Frontières.
Yeah.
So it's not a good thing. They had bombed the WFP vehicle once in Bamenda, and several casualties. The threats, the online threats against UNDP and the rest is something that is not called for. These humanitarian organizations or agencies are here to help the people, and whoever claims he or she is speaking for the people has to allow these humanitarian workers to do their job. Humanitarian workers are not part of the conflict, and to be honest, when you kill, kidnap, torture, burn their vehicle, it's a serious crime punishable by the international community. We have seen instances in Sierra Leone where people were convicted for kidnapping UN peacekeepers. So I urge them, those who are parties to the conflict, you can have your fight, but please keep humanitarian workers out of it. They are not parties to the conflict. They are not combatants taking part in active hostility. They are non-state actors. They are not government. They're just there to help the people.
But what is this relationship? What is the relationship like with the authorities? Because at one point, the Minister of Territorial Administration said that most of these humanitarian groups operate without seeking the authorization from the authorities. Are there some confidence-building measures that have been taken with the government to ensure that their work is genuine? And they have also been accused of even supporting the armed groups who are around.
You see, this bellicose attitude of the state is not helpful. Okay, they should understand also that these humanitarian agencies are very professional people. They have worked in other places. Cameroon is not reinventing the wheel. These people have been working in lots of countries, and yes, they have to cooperate with government because this is sovereign country, and we respect that, and I understand that. But to accuse humanitarian workers of collaborating with separatists, no. They would have to support separatists also by providing food or non-food items, because they came to help. They are helping the people. It's not colored. It's not like separatists and non-separatists. So government knows they should not spin it. you know, and the data, the statistics that they use about the humanitarian catastrophe, they got it from these very international these organizations. So you cannot pick and choose when he needs them. And don't forget also, these are the same people. It's not everything that they say you believe in. You know, these are the same people who, there was a time during the elections, they brought in they claimed there were some election monitors or observers, and we realized that it was fake. So it's not everything that they say that we must religiously, you know. I think there was a time when there was a lot of tension between the humanitarian actor, civil society, and the government. I would call for a truce. It's time for, whether it's Minat or the Prime Minister, to have a meeting with civil society organizations, to have a meeting also with humanitarian, so that, like a tripartite, yes, meeting, or you hold with civil societies, probably local, and then after whole one. I think it's just to build confidence. You know, nobody is here because they hate this country. Okay, nobody is fighting the government in the civil society or humanitarian. They have to talk. So understanding each other could help us. These trading attacks, insults on TV, radio, the newspapers, either using surrogates to try to preach hate against the humanitarian organizations, it's not helpful. Because to be honest, they have been to places where the government cannot be. They have provided enormous support to people who are victims not only of the crisis here, but in the north of Cameroon. I mean, this crisis, humanitarian situation is not only in the southwest and the northwest, in the far north. We've seen what these organizations are doing. You know, so we have to support them. We have to support the UN and its agencies, its UNDP, the WFPs, you know, and also the Norwegian Refugee and the Danish Refugee Council and Médecins Sans Frontières. We need to support all of them to ensure that they can provide an enabling environment for them to do their work to the best of their ability.
Now, Barrister, what does it take to punish those involved in war crimes and crimes against humanity in a violent conflict like the one we have? I'm asking that question because the ICC recently turned down a request filed by a lawyer who is Barrister Lionel Betik, who filed a complaint against the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, for crimes against humanity concerning the conflict. Now, what does it take for the ICC to intervene to try those involved in rights violations, no matter where they stand?
Like any court, they must have a jurisdiction. If you look at Article 12 and 13 of the Rome Statute that created the International Criminal Court, it clearly talks about where the court would have jurisdiction. You know, where a state is a party to the conflict. State is a party, let's say, where conflict happened or the crimes were committed. A state has, you know, has signed or ratified the Rome Treaty. Also, where a non-state party to the allegations, but a member or a citizen of that country is in a country that has accepted it. Or you talk about where there's a Security Council referral, then the court will have jurisdiction. The court has jurisdiction for war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, and the crime of aggression. If you look at the particular instance of Cameroon, you would notice that Cameroon has not ratified the Rome Treaty, meaning that Cameroon cannot, through the normal process, be brought to the ICC.
To the ICC.
The only solution will be through a referral. And a referral is a political legal mechanism to bring somebody or a state, a non-state party, to the ICC. It happened in Darfur, Sudan, it happened in the Côte d'Ivoire also. But for them to trigger that mechanism, the Security Council would have to vote on it, meaning that there would have been a Security Council referral. And the thing about referral is that if it's vetoed by one of the five powers,
then it's invalid.
Then it's invalid. So that's basically what the office of the prosecutor was saying, is that the tenets, the jurisdictional standards have not been met. So it means that they don't have jurisdiction. But also don't forget that the ICC did not come to replace our national courts. There's what they call in international criminal complementarity, where the state is unwilling where the state fails or is unwilling to prosecute. If there are international crimes, then it might go to the ICC. You remember the situation with Kenya. Kofi Annan, of blessed memory, had tried to see that Kenya prosecutes. It took a long time. It was as a result of Kenya's failure to prosecute the perpetrators that the ICC assumed its jurisdiction. So for the time being, as the prosecutor's office said, the ICC doesn't have jurisdiction. But he said that in future, you know, if one of these ingredients in Article 12 and 13 are met, they have the information in their archives, then they might do proper investigation, okay, to see also whether the crimes fall within the jurisdiction of the ICC. So it's still a two-pronged approach, but basically there might also be situations where you can create a special court, like what happened in Sierra Leone, which doesn't go, because for the Security Council to intervene is through the Chapter 7 mandate of the Security Council. But you can use Chapter 6 also to create a special tribunal, which doesn't go through the whole bottlenecks. And also, if a court were to be created, I don't think only one party will be brought to trial, because crimes against humanity have been committed by all parties to the conflict. So there will be need for a court, but also probably a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in this country, you know, where people can apologize, you know, confess what they've done to the public and ask for their forgiveness, and we can also heal and move forward as a state.
Yeah, Barrister, you have been carrying out a campaign through your organization on the improper use of force in conflict. How successful has that been in the two restive regions, considering that the clashes between government and separatist forces are still on ground?
What we did is that we published a pamphlet in French, English, and in Pidgin, and we equally published a handbook where we were advising or educating combatants, non-state actors, and government forces on what they are not supposed to do in a conflict situation. We just came out with a video. The first one was in French. Another one came out a few days ago in Pidgin. And then probably today or tomorrow the English version will be coming out. We're just trying to sensitize. So what we've done is that we've sent it to some of the leaders of the various arms groups. We know people who know some of them. We're giving it to civil society organizations who work in some of those areas. We're giving it to humanitarian workers. We're giving it to the clergy. We've shared it, you know, because when you speak to some of them, some people believe that because they have a just cause, they might use unjust means in justifying their justness. You understand? But you try to tell them that no, it doesn't make sense to burn a school. It becomes a war crime if you burn a school, if you burn a hospital, if you kidnap somebody, if somebody who is not taking any active part in hostility. You cannot come and burn a village, for example, an entire village. You don't torture people. These are things which are not accepted. Yes, wars are fought, but there are laws of wars also. So we are educating them on, and we did it through in the most simplified way, not much literature. We use pictures of what has happened in Cameroon. Okay, so it's easy. We try to, so they have a better understanding. Try to domesticate it, but it's not only in the southwest and the northwest. We made sure that those in the north, you know, fighting in Boko Haram could use it. We are hoping that we will get a translator for Fube, you know, so that we can also translate it in a language that the people in North, but at least we know that a lot of them in the North speak French. So it's applicable to conflicts out of Cameroon also.
Okay, Barrister, thank you. And on that note, I will take a break for the first part of Hard Talk. When we return, Hard Talk continues. Welcome back to Hard Talk. Our guest is Barrister Felix Nkongho Agbor Balla, founder of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. He has worked at the UN mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as the Special Court in Sierra Leone. Barrister, we will be talking about the political atmosphere in the country. The leader of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, Professor Maurice Kamto, early this week said that Cameroonians should not accept any election without, first of all, the resolution of the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions, as well as reforms on the electoral code. What do you make of that particular stand?
Ideally, we need to have a resolution to the crisis for us to move on as a state. We equally need reforms in the electoral laws. At times, it's difficult for us to get these things done before an election. If I have my way, I would say yes, let's do these things, because I know people who would have loved to run for parliament and councils, but they did not run because of the crisis, because of the insecurity, and because they felt that they might be betraying the people. Yes, Cameroon needs better electoral laws, so that he who wins an election should have the legitimacy of the entire people. But there's the need for also government and the opposition to sit and try to find a solution with civil society organizations also. This trading of jabs over the media, or saying that if this doesn't happen, it mustn't be like that. I don't think it should be like that. As leaders of political parties also, we have to try to measure the statements that we make. For example, we are not in any position, first of all, to stop the election from going on. That's the first thing. Okay, we can talk, but if they want the elections to go on, I think that we should give proper solutions or concrete solutions. And then don't be very bellicose also. Just try to find a middle ground and lobby parliamentarians. Unfortunately, MRC doesn't have anybody in parliament, so it's always very difficult. Lobby parliamentarians, lobby civil societies. Let it be a people-centric kind of demand. It should not be like it's from a particular political party. Let it be. Let the people appropriate it, and let it be the ones, meaning that even if you're in CPDM, you're in parliament or you're in Senate, they should sell the project to them to understand that for this country to move forward, we need to resolve the crisis. We need to amend the electoral code. That is to avoid other battles. We resolve the crisis today, and we don't work on the electoral code, it would also lead to other post-electoral violence. So if you put it like that because we love this country, because we want to see this country move, let us try to put long-lasting measures in place that would avert conflict, what we call early warning. And in one of the things that we were doing, I did not mention, we are now working with our communities, to try to talk to them how to cope in a crisis situation, and for them to identify early warning mechanisms. For example, if people were trained on early warning signs, some of them would have already seen the signs before the conflict came, and they would have been prepared, at least in a way. The German embassy has provided us some funds that we are currently doing training workshops in communities on early warnings, and also on their coping mechanisms, and talking about human rights documentation also.
Now, but what do you make of the various the various disagreements? Let's put it that way, between the Cameroon Renaissance movement and the government. I'm asking so because back in 2018, during the post-elections hearing, you described Maurice Kamto as a man who incarnates the unity and justice of Cameroon.
Yes, I said it, and I believe that as a leader, he has a vision. And I equally said that I don't belong to any political party, that I don't belong to the CRM. I was a lawyer for Maurice Kamto. I'm not a lawyer even for the party.
For the party,
I was a lawyer Maurice Kamto, because Maurice Kamto was my lawyer also during the trial. And where injustice is being perpetuated, I stand for justice. So, but there is a need to reconcile the politicians in this country. I've had meetings with a lot of them on one-on-one. Their own hatred and anger against each other is something that you cannot believe it. So if they have to move forward, I think that the politicians and civil society, because it's not sufficient for you to form a party or to head a party. We have seen political parties that don't have more than 10 members, and their leaders claim they are speaking on behalf of the people, and they don't involve civil society in the meeting because they are not registered political party. We have to rise beyond that if we really want to bring meaningful change in Cameroon. And this thing in Cameroon where you are leader X and everybody must only follow you, okay, a big party and a big leader can concede to a small party for the sake of unity, can also concede that, okay, because you are a smaller party, I believe that if we get together, you should head the opposition, because we know that you might not be able to change the laws. So, but we have a strong man syndrome in this country where everybody wants to be the leader. Every party thinks that it's their God-given right. And at the end of the day, if you look at what is happening on social media, you realize that the opposition parties are fighting each other. They're not even talking about the government. You understand? You see between Cabral Libre supporters and supporters of MRC, the ones of SDF, everybody spends time insulting each other. This is a time when they have to broaden their base, you know, come out with policies that they can convince the people, encourage people to register in the voters registers list, and then work towards building a vibrant opposition. I don't see that being done. You know, I only see the infighting and the criticism, which is not helpful to the country.
Now, this leads me to talk about hate speech. How damaging it is to Cameroon in this context?
It's very damaging. It's very damaging because we have institutionalized the incitement of hate against people, against institutions, and this is both in the private and the public media. Is in the traditional and the modern means of communication. Social media, for example, has taken hate speech to another level. You know, people insult, assault, you know, incite violence against people. It's not necessary. If we have to build, we must not destroy, and you must not run somebody down, institution down, because you want to be seen to be relevant. You know, the people cannot be fooled, and with time people realize that the common people are just being pushed by the politicians to fight their wars, you know, which is something that I totally stand against. We can disagree without being disagreeable. You know, the level of hate speech, the level of tribalism that's going on, you know, the we against them. You hear word Sardinat, you hear word Tontinat, you hear word Enabler, you hear Blacklegs. These are not helpful. It's a recipe for doom and disaster, because if you come to power today when you've been inciting hate against the other people, look at what is happening today between the Sardinat and the Tontinat. It's clearly a kind of a social media war, you know. So we need to, and the leaders have to tell their followers that please put a stop to this.
Do the leaders share a responsibility in this?
They do. They do. I've not seen them dissociating themselves from it. You know, it might suit them today, but tomorrow it would come to haunt them. You understand? Because I follow social media a lot. I'm a religious follower on social media. Initially, it was the so-called Tontinat that had an upper hand, but today the Sardinat are coming up also. If you look at the struggle, the pro people for the struggle used to incite violence against other people. Now the surrogates of the regime have come with their own groupings also, and they too are inciting hatred against the other parties. We need to. It's not going to be helpful. Nobody wants a Rwanda in Cameroon. It's not necessary. You know, we have problems, we have differences, but we can find a solution without necessarily inciting violence against people.
Now, what should government do? The government recently quite foul against the fact that people are using social media to discredit government actions and government personalities. What should government do to ensure that this particular practice of hate speech is really put to an end?
Government has to be just also. The same government that are using the public media and social media to discredit and insult other people. So it's a 50-50 thing. And he who comes to equity must come with clean hands, okay? Government to ensure that these things are respected. You know, we have seen in this country where media houses that are powerful have insulted Anglophones, have made statements, but the Peter Nsoesie Commission did not have the powers to bring them to book, because they are either from the powerful clan or they are being supported by ministers who have power in this country. So for those laws to be effectively implemented, it has to be, you know, it has to be neutral. It doesn't have to be a respecter of person. That's why justice is blind, because it doesn't respect anybody. It doesn't see anybody. It sees the law and the justness of it. So yes, a lot has to be done. I heard the other day the Minister of Post and Telecommunication and Communication, they were crying foul. I totally agree that we should fight hate speech, you know. people have said all sorts of funny things online about other people, about me also. I've been a victim of hate speech. I respond by not responding, but I also think that government, in as much as they are complaining that is done by the others, they too do same.
Now, the second ordinary session of Parliament ended barely a week ago in Yaoundé. What are your impressions about the session, especially looking at the new parties that have gone into Parliament, the PCRN, for example?
Well, I was not very impressed. It's same old. Not much has been done. The CPDM has an overwhelming majority, so there's really nothing anybody can do. They might make noises around the corridors, raise a few points, but I don't expect a lot, But hopefully, as some of them grow into their parliamentary seats, they would also take the bull by the horn and try to make some changes. Joe Weber and a few SDF people, there were not many, but they tried to speak on behalf of the people. So what we expect them, because they are representatives, they have to speak on our behalf. So there are a few young men and women who are there, who this is their first session. Let's hope that they would be able, as time goes, to do a lot. For example, the bill on dual nationality is something which has been waiting for long. Cameroonians, we've waited it for long. Hopefully, in the next session, we will be able to, because I saw a draft that was being circulated. So we hope that things can get better. And equally, they should also rethink about this family and civil code that they want to pass.
Exactly. I was just coming to it.
There are certain aspects which personally I don't think.
Just dwell on them.
Which I don't think is good. For example, if one of the spouses dies, who is supposed, if you see the next of kin to inherit, the spouse is the third. You understand? So I don't see why your father or your father-in-law or your uncles should have a better position than, let's say, your wife, for example. I don't think it's proper. So I hope that in the common law system, ideally the spouse would be the one to be the first on the list.
On the list.
So I know that in Francophone Cameroon, it's always been like what they're trying to put to our throat. And if we are talking about gender balance and violence against women and the rights to ensure that women have equality, this particular section should be looked into critically. That is why our organization, the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, we issued a statement drawing government's attention to what we think would be a violation of the rights of women. So hopefully, at times also, they go back into the drawing board and they try to amend some of the laws.
Now, do you really believe that Cameroon, the state of Cameroon, has to ensure a better relationship with the diaspora? Because recently, just moments ago, you spoke about a draft bill on the diaspora that was circulating on the internet. How helpful could such a bill be if enacted into law?
These diasporas are Cameroonians. That's the first thing. I lived abroad for 17 years. Very few Cameroonians, even with a foreign passport. I don't have a foreign passport. There was a time I read on social media that I had a foreign passport. I don't have a foreign passport. But I have family. My daughter has a foreign passport. My sisters and brothers. I have lots of friends. They are Cameroonians, okay? They buy property, they invest, they want to do business. But at times it's frustrating when you go to our embassies abroad. They refuse some of them visas. How do you invest in a country where you cannot have a visa to come back to the country? You see Ghana and the other parts of the continent that are doing dual nationality, okay? So it's encouraging for the Cameroonians. We have one of the most resourceful diasporans. Don't mind about what people might write on social media. I went to school abroad. Cameroonians are one of the most intelligent, one of the most educated. They are one of the most hardworking. They are successful professionals in their own right. in all domains, you find a top Cameroonians.
Yeah.
Some of them want to come back. I tell you, I have a friend who used to work who works in one international organization in Geneva. He told me that he was applying, he wanted to come and teach in the University of Boya, for example, finding a way that he could juggle the two. So we have lots of them who want to come back. We have some of them who have come back who are still living here, but they have to be renewing their resident permit. It doesn't make sense. So I understand that some people are scared of diasporans because he who pays the pipers dictate the tune, and since government doesn't pay them or give them, they are very vocal. They're very critical of the regime. But it's helpful for the state to have sons and daughters of your country to participate in nation building. And if they want to get involved, why not allow them to get involved? To me, it's going to be a good thing if a bill is sent to parliament, is voted by parliamentarians, and is signed into law by the president.
But the government says that it is not happy seeing some of them put the country to disrepute. We have seen some of them attack embassies, destroy property, organizing protests against government officials and even the head of state. What do you think should be done to ensure that a more solid relationship exists between those who are against the government and government itself?
I don't support violence, so I don't support the burning of an embassy. I don't support the attack of government officials. But that's not the entire Cameroonian diaspora also. Government should not pick and choose. Let government look at the other diasporans also who are making us proud. And because a minister embezzles, it doesn't mean all ministers embezzle. There are people in Cameroon also who've attacked government. There are people in the military who have attacked civilians. It doesn't make them non-Cameroonian. So I don't want them to look at that, to put all diasporans in a box and try to blacklist them or stereotype them or profile them. But also there's a need for a Ministry of Diaspora and Affairs in this country. I know in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs they have a sub-director, but I think that Ghana or Senegal has something like that. They should have a minister who is in charge of diaspora affairs, who would be the interface between the diaspora and the people in Cameroon, and also confidence building measures. The people in the diaspora feel that they have been abandoned on their own. Okay, the people in Cameroon think that the people in the diaspora are very arrogant. They always criticize us. They believe that nothing good can come out from those in the country. So there is a need to bridge the gap, you understand, and use the human resources of the diasporans to contribute towards the development of the country. Some of them have a lot of money that they want to invest. Some of them are professionals, very intelligent. They want to come back to help the country. They want to serve the state. They should get involved in politics. We need to find a way. As I said, they are all Cameroonians. Okay? They are Cameroonians by birth. Okay? They are Cameroonians by right. The paper, the passport doesn't determine. They are Cameroonians. At the end of the day, let me say, they are Cameroonians at heart.
At heart.
And that's what is important.
Now, the head of state, President Paul Biya, who heads the Higher Judicial Council, has announced a meeting of the Higher Judicial Council for early next month. What are your expectations as a lawyer?
Well, my expectations are that those who are supposed to be sanctioned, because they've not been sanctioned for a while, corruption in the judiciary is running riot, that people who have fallen foul of the laws should be sanctioned. There are also those people that do retirement. There are young men and women who have left school for 3 years. They've not been posted, where we have spaces in the courts, where they need people to work there.
Vacancies.
So at least they should try to appoint people, reassign some of them and sanction them, and hopefully also to chart a better course for the justice sector in this country. And I expect that this Higher Judicial Council should at least be meeting at least once a year. We cannot wait for 3 years without having a Judicial Council. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of inertia in the judiciary. I'm hoping that this Judicial Council this year would start putting his feet on the ground, so that at least justice can not only be done, but should be seen to be done.
Now, but what are the stakes, especially concerning the Anglophone lawyers? You were part of the consortium which articulated the plight of Anglophone lawyers during the start of the crisis. Do you think that the Higher Judicial Council that's upcoming could make a big step to ensure that the rights of Anglophone lawyers are respected?
Well, we complain about the francophonization of our courts. Not much has really been done. The appointment of civil law trained magistrates, and we did not say about the appointment of francophones. We are not against francophones. We said civil law trained magistrates. Some of them don't really understand
the common law,
how the common law and how we operate. But equally also, the whole higher judicial council has to be reviewed. Okay, there's a need to ensure that those who are going to the bench to be judges and magistrates, they have to have been to the bar. They have to practice law before going there. They will show a kind of respect to the lawyers also when they get to the bench. You know, we talked about the need of a law school. The number of Cameroonians who are going abroad to law school, the costs on their parents, to the state, and the risk. One of my finest students, Ayamba, died coming from Nigeria. He died in the sea, you know, just because of the fact that he was coming back from Nigeria. If we had a law school here, for example, we would not be having such problems. So I think that there are lots of things that they have to look into.
All right, Barrister Felix Nkongho, Balla, thank you very much for talking to us on Hard Talk.
Thanks a lot for having me.
And we hope to have you some other time.
Yes, some other time. Thank you.
Yeah, and to you, televiewers, it was a pleasure being with you. Until next time, bye-bye.